Okay, so it is evening this side, and I cannot go to sleep without running a video. So I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to speak to everybody in South Africa. I want to speak with the leaders in America that want to hear. I was listening to the conversation, brief conversation that they had live with Donald Trump and with our President Ramaphosa. And then just a brief word from the DA, John Steenhuizen, Agricultural Minister. Oh, Lord, help us, please. We are needing much help, don't we? I think a lot of you are disappointed, but I just want you to know that God is rocking the boat. His hand is over this whole situation. If you remember way back, I think it's about a year ago, 2 years ago, time goes so fast, when the Lord spoke about Nebuchadnezzar. I have to bring that in, relating to Ramaphosa. The video, if I go and look at it again, I think to myself, the message was there, but the video didn't look so good. But it's not about that. It's about the word that God spoke. And then also the time the Lord spoke as well, in a different video where the Lord spoke about Jehoshaphat time. So if I look what's happening now, I see the slipstream. It's like a fish. You either go down the river or you try and going up the river. Now, if I look what's happening here, I hope that there will be a political party, maybe 5 political parties, 5 different presidents, a white president, a black president, a colored president, an Indian president, and a Khoisan president. And we can take those 5 and we can run this nation in the most amazing way. Why am I speaking like this? Because that's my heart. My heart is for South Africa. My heart is to see South Africa change. But I've got a heart for this nation. If I listen to Johan Rupert, when he said he doesn't lock his doors, I was thinking, when are we going to have backbone? There was another video that the Lord spoke about, and he said, we are like jellyfish. We've got no backbone, we've got no brains, and we've got no heart. What is wrong with South Africans that we cannot stand up? And like in Afrikaans, they say, ruggraat. Waar's ons ruggraat? We don't have to fight. We just have to speak. And we have to speak the truth, because we're in the decade of the pay. And the decade of the pay means speak. And God is going to be with us. If we speak, God is going to be with us. We've got it until 2029. After that, 2029 is a deadline where we must speak. If we look at the year before, the decade before this one, it was the eye. God wanted us to see the evil eye and the good eye, to see which one we're choosing. He was watching us for those 10 years. And then we go into another 10-year span. And the Lord says, now I want to see what you're going to speak. If we look at what Johan Rupert said, just something that popped up, and he said, and I don't even lock my doors. And I'm thinking to myself, you're saying it on television to make people think that we are okay. We are not okay.
I often go to bed without locking the door. We need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station. We need drones.
That's all I want to say. We are not okay. And it's not about drones. We can have many drones. We can have many cameras. It's not about that. It's about the citizens of this nation that have got no government. Nothing. We have no traffic department on the road. When I was a child, you would see the traffic department all over. Speed cops after speed cops after speed cops. No police. Hardly any police do you see. I've been to Israel and I was shocked when I climbed off the aeroplane and off the trains. And there's an army guy standing here with a rifle and an army guy standing here with a rifle. We don't have the right government. We don't have the right governance, because they are safe in their homes. They don't have to lock their doors because they've got these high walls. 10 to 1, you have got security. You're in a security complex, or you are in a province where there isn't crime like there is. I come from Polokwane. And if I speak about Polokwane, I didn't sleep at night. I slept on a plot. The one night they came and broke in right across from my plot, and I heard the banging, but I thought it's because the wind was blowing, and I thought it's something banging on a roof. Thank goodness I didn't go out because the Lord protected me. If I went out, I went to look, or I saw trouble, what would have happened to me? Criminals are ravaging our nation, and they're right on the top, President Ramaphosa. What about, what has happened to the Zondo Commission? Where have any of them been found accountable? Where have you seen? You spent billions on it in court. Nothing gets heard about it. You don't need more money from America. President Donald Trump, I want you to hear me nicely. We don't need more money. We need better governance. But what about us women that are looking at you men and saying, when are we going to change this country to be a godly country that loves Jesus Christ again?
If I could just ask you a question. 72% of farmers in your country are white. If they flee, do you feel that maybe the economy could collapse? You may not have a gap to fill in those people that need to replace those farmers.
You know, I'd like my Minister of Agriculture, who is white, who comes from an opposition party to mine, who's joined my government at my invitation to address this very issue, including the question that you've just raised. John?
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yeah.
And Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us to the White House. I would say we have a rural safety problem in South Africa. I don't think anyone wants to candy coat that. And it requires a lot of effort to get on top of it. It's going to require more policing resources. It's going to require a different strategy to be able to deal with it. But certainly the majority of South Africa's commercial and smallholder farmers really do want to stay in South Africa and make it work. And I've just come from the largest agricultural show in the Southern Hemisphere with organized agriculture and farmers, and the majority of them want to stay. But they too there have a memorial to those who've died as a result of farm attacks. And as the Minister of Agriculture, it is something that I'm particularly exercised with my colleagues at police and my colleagues in the justice cluster to start making farm attacks and stock theft a priority crime. And it affects all farmers in South Africa, particularly stock theft. It has a disproportionate effect on smallholder black farmers. I also want to just say this, that the two individuals that are in that video that you've seen are both leaders of opposition minority parties in South Africa. Umkhonto weSizwe under Mr. Zuma and the economic freedom fighters under Mr. Malema. Now the reason that my party, the Democratic Alliance, which has been an opposition party for over 30 years, chose to join hands with Mr. Ramaphosa's party was precisely to keep those people out of power. We cannot have those people sitting in the union buildings making decisions. And that is why after 30 years of us exchanging barbs across the floor in Parliament and trying to get one over on each other, we've decided to join hands precisely to keep that lot out of government. Because the day they get in to the doors of the union buildings in South Africa or control of our parliament, that's what you're going to see. And that is why this government, working together, needs the support of our allies around the world so that we can strengthen our hand, grow our economy, and shut the door forever on that rabble getting through the doors of the union buildings.
The EFF members, we would want to welcome them back, and in fact I would be able to say we would love to have Julius Malema back in the ANC. He is still ANC down deep in his heart. So we would like to have those who are in the EFF back in the ANC, because the ANC is their home.
Donald J. Trump offered refugee status to white Afrikaner farmers, and then he expanded it, I think, in the last few days to mean any minorities in South Africa being persecuted. And the persecution is definitely in place economically, and it's beginning culturally. Our government have flown over here to try and tell Donald Trump there is no genocide. Let me talk about farm murders in South Africa. Our commercial farming population is 30,000 farmers. The American commercial farming population is 3 million. It is 3 times more dangerous being a farmer in South Africa than a policeman, and twice as dangerous being a policeman than an average citizen. Farm attacks are not only attack and then 30 to 40% are murders, but it's torture of the most horrific kind and rapes. Not just white farmers, but mainly white farmers. And the South African government police has done nothing to protect these farmers. Cyril Ramaphosa claims the problem doesn't exist. South Africa is a violent society. But how come so many farmers have been attacked, murdered, raped in South Africa? And if you extrapolate, if you take a pro rata number of South African farmers attacked and murdered and killed to the American population, over the last 20 years, 233,000 American farmers would have been murdered. And you don't think that's some form of genocide? It's horrific. So look at Germany in the 1930s. Look at what's happening in South Africa. No wonder so many people are leaving. No wonder Donald Trump has said they get refugee status.
Where's your army? Where's your police force? We don't have a navy. We don't have an air force. When you break the military, you break a country. And that's what I want to say to the South African people. We've got the window of opportunity now. If you do not speak up, you are a jellyfish, finished and clear. I remember there was a group of army guys that went up to our border of South Africa and Zimbabwe. Then Masina, that area. They didn't even have meat. The farmers had to go and kill their buck, slaughter it, chop it up, and take it to the military guys so that they had food. Please, man, no. This is wrong. I'm telling you now. Where's our navies? Where's our boats? Why are we just a peacekeeping force? We are supposed to have military-trained guys. We need our skies, our radar system. I mean, are you hearing of the stuff? Or are you not hearing the stuff, President Ramaphosa? Is it not going in? Is your heart not getting affected? Is it because you've got everything? So when you leave in 5, 3, 2 years, 1 year, whatever is planned for you, that you are quite happy just to speak very nice and kindly, and we're not going to argue and fight about things? Well, I'm telling you now, you're not a president if you cannot raise your voice and make a statement, bold statement, and say, no more in this country will we have this happening.
The parliamentary committees on defence are pressing the government to inject increased financial resources into the Department of Defence. The chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, that's Malusi Gigaba, has warned that persistent underfunding threatens not only the country's ability to defend its borders, but also its international credibility and economic growth potential. Now, the death of 14 soldiers in the DRC earlier this year brought the resourcing and funding of the Defence Force into sharp focus. And for more on this, let's chat to the chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, Malusi Gigaba. Chair, great to have you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Leanne, and good morning to the viewers at home.
When we break it down and we look at the state of the SANDF currently, I mean, just, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but just a very quick search, we get to see the incredibly difficult situation that's there. Only a handful of Gripen fighter jets are serviceable. RX and Roy Falk helicopters are aging. They're not operational. No long-range airlift capability to move troops. The Navy, only 1 or 2 vessels are seaworthy. The submarine fleet is effectively grounded. Coastal and maritime surveillance is nearly non-existent. Vehicles for the army are outdated and prone to failure. I mean, these are just some of the issues that, I mean, if South Africa had to protect itself, I don't think we would stand a chance in protecting this country with the way things are now with the SANDF.
Let's start by saying you are absolutely correct, and all of those issues that you are raising are real. But let's be clear: the South African National Defence Force, even with the sustained underfunding, remains one of the most funded national defense forces on the African continent. It is capable of defending our national sovereignty. It's capable of defending our borders, but we've got to arrest the sustained underfunding if we must ensure that going forward, it continues to maintain its prestige on the continent and internationally. Because a country that cannot defend itself and that doesn't have a national defense force that can be trusted becomes easy prey for all sorts of criminal agencies and including rebel activities.
That's, if we put a price to one military hospital, we're talking R1 billion has been spent to date, and it's still not workable. And this is a major problem. Another major problem, let's talk to Denel. Because, I mean, when we look at Denel, once a pride of a nation, this parastatal has basically managed to be crippled. I mean, and this goes back to, many years. I mean, we can go back to the days of state capture where we look at what happened to Denel. And billions have been spent there without a single delivery of, let's take, for example, vehicles that were meant to be delivered to the army. They're not fulfilling their mandate. Salaries are not being paid. It's basically in a state of collapse. Where are we at when it comes to Denel?
So a new leadership has been appointed, a new board, new CEO. They are in operation. They are doing their best, and we hope that they will succeed to turn the company around, so that they are able to deliver on the project Hoof Esther, which was supposed to have been delivered to the National Defence Force, and money has been paid for that project, but those capabilities have not been delivered. The Denel is in a state of dilapidation as it is, so it needs to be turned around. We've lost a lot of technical engineering capabilities.
All these companies that have got so much money, and I'm going to mention names now. I want to ask you, why have none of you even thought of coming together and saying, let us change this nation because we see there's a problem? You're not going to stay rich forever if you don't care about your neighbor. And your neighbors is somebody in there that's in the gutters. If I have a look and I see what was said tonight, just brief the things that I could get. Ramaphosa was squirming in his seat because he didn't know what to do because the truth was getting revealed. And God is going to reveal it like he said he's going to do with Nebuchadnezzar. Our government is ruling us, like the Lord said, land pirates. Remember that video. If you don't, go and look at it. Land pirates are busy stealing your country rotten. And what happens when your country gets stolen rotten? Nobody has work. Our government is supposed to be giving work to the people, not handouts. We don't need handouts in this country. I want to talk about the farmers, that what happened with when the video was shown. And Ramaphosa turned to Donald Trump and said, where is this place? Excuse me, do you want to tell me that nobody told you about the farmers that have been murdered with all the crosses that have gone up on the N1? I walked the N1 from the north to the south. I walked the N4 from the west to the east. And I'm still walking for this country. I'm still praying for this country. I want to know, President Ramaphosa, how can you not know what's happening to the white farmers? I'm not even a president, but I know what's happening. I see it because I'm interested in the people of my nation. The reason why South Africa is covering it over, it sounds so nice, but there's so many white people, so many black people. It's not just white people. How many farmers are going to be left? And every time a farmer dies, that estate has to be taxed. So that tax is a big amount of money, which our government loves to thrive on. They don't care about the lives. And that's what I want to bring out to you. I'm 64 years of age. I want to see my children and my grandchildren growing up in South Africa. This is my country where I was born, and I'd love my children to find work here. People do not find work because if it's 40% or more they can't find work, then excuse me. Who's lying to who now? The president of the nation doesn't even know where those crosses are that are... No, This has been for years and years and years. You've been here 30 plus years, from 1994, and you've walked next to every single leader in government. You know what's going on.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites, over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But, okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa, that's where.
We'll need to find out.
That moment in the Oval Office yesterday, did you think it was a significant moment for South Africans? Were you hopeful in a way because the American president had finally taken up your cause?
Well, I think, firstly, for the ANC and for the South African government, the meeting was a total disaster, the catastrophic way in which it unfolded. I think it was a really historic event for many reasons. For the one reason, firstly, that it put the very real and serious issue of farm murders on the global map to a degree that I don't think has happened in the past by any other party or leader or organization. And then also it confronted for the first time the South African government with the bitter fruits of its own policies and its own rhetoric and its own radicalism. And at the end of the day, when the South African government and particularly the ANC were tested on it for the first time in a long time on a global stage, they folded. They didn't have an answer. Their only real response was, don't believe your lying eyes and ears. Don't look at the screen. It's not real. That was the summation of their response, and I think it's been woefully inadequate for most people that would have given them a chance if they had some coherent response as to what was an explanation for what was being shown on the screen. But they just doubled down on the denial. This is not happening. I've never seen this before. Where is this from? I think the most telling moment was exactly that, when President Donald Trump showed that video of one of the largest farm murder protests in South Africa's history that happened in 2020, the video of all the crosses next to the road to protest farm murders. He showed that video to the president of South Africa, and then the president asks, where is this from? And then Donald Trump embarrassingly has to tell the president of South Africa, this is from your country. And it happened under his watch. It happened in 2020. At this protest, there was a massive banner addressing President Ramaphosa, asking how many more murders is he going to tolerate, farm murders in particular. So no, it went very badly for the ANC and for the South African delegation. But for South Africa, it went very well because the government and its inadequacies and its lies were exposed for the first time in a long time to a very large audience, a global audience, and they were not impressed with what they saw.
Plasmoor monument has thousands of white crosses that pay tribute to white farmers who were killed during farm attacks. Located on private property, the site can be seen from afar to draw attention to farm attacks. It was founded by the late Lita Cross-Fourie in 2004 in memory of her loved ones who were killed during separate farm attacks before 2004. The FF Plus says it has been working with the founders to maintain the site.
The White Cross Memorial was started in 2004 by a lady, Lita Cross-Fourie. She started it after her family died. Some family and friends died in a farm attack in the previous years. She started the initiative, and since from that day in 2004, every year crosses gets planted for farmers that lost their lives in farm attacks in the aforementioned year.
The party says it calls for the establishment of a special police unit to investigate farm attacks has over the years been ignored.
FF Plus is very glad towards President Trump to show the video. We have been fighting in Parliament through our previous leader, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, to make farm murders a priority, to bring back community-based commando system and to bring back specialized police units that investigate farm murders, to bring them back so that the spotlight can be on it. And we've been fighting that in Parliament.
There are annual cross-printing ceremonies. The next ceremony has been scheduled for the 3rd and 4th of October. Biman Baloyi, SABC News on the N1 North near Polokwane.
The murder of Klapmut's farmer Hubert Conradi has sparked a gathering of thousands. A convoy of hundreds of vehicles slowly made their way towards Cape Town to bring attention to farm murders. A group of farm workers also joined in.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Ronaldo here. So this video is going to focus on our president Cyril Ramaphosa making an outlandish statement on international media saying that farm murders, and more specifically white farm murders, aren't taking place in this country.
But on the tweet itself, he was clearly misinformed. And whoever gave him that information was completely wrong. There are no killings of farmers or white farmers in South Africa.
Now, we need to be realistic with one another. You all know how I feel about murders. I think it's important that we focus on all murders in this country, all 20,336 murders that took place over the last financial year. 57 murders a day in this country. All of them are important, all of them need to be focused on, and all murderers need to be condemned for what they did in that aspect. But when our president comes on an international platform and try and hide the fact that 62 of those murders actually took place, that is problematic. And that is a concern that I have. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa has had a clear history of contradicting himself and then the presidency after the fact trying to do damage control. We've seen this with the land expropriation without compensation on the one side, but then he also wants to grow the economy. Now we see it with him stating that farm murders, and more specifically white farm murders, aren't taking place. And then after the fact he comes and says, no, that's not what was meant. He was actually referring to Donald Trump's tweet. Now, I'm sorry to say, but that is just absolute bull. We know that it's absolute bull, because no matter how much you try and sugarcoat the statement or try and say that it was misconstrued, the words that there are no murders specifically related to farmers taking place in this country came out of his mouth.
Yamish, good to see you.
Hi, good. Thanks for taking my question.
Sure.
The president showed a video that he said showed more than 1,000 burial sites of white South Africans that he said were murdered. We know that that was not true and that the video wasn't showing that. So I wonder, why did the president choose to show that? What's not true, Yamiche? It's not true. The video was showing a burial site. It is unsubstantiated that that's the case.
No, it is true that that video showed the crosses that represent
what the president claimed.
The video showed images of crosses in South Africa about white farmers who have been killed and politically persecuted because of the color of their skin. And those crosses are representing their lives. Those crosses are representing their lives in the fact that they are now dead and their government did nothing about it. Are you disputing that there's no...
The fact that the video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more, what I'm asking you is who at the White House...
No, it did show that. It showed white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
Verifies the videos that the president shows, and what protocols are in place when there's unsubstantiated information being put out for the world and world leaders to show?
Yamiche, what's unsubstantiated about the video? The video shows crosses that represent the dead bodies of people who were racially persecuted by their government. In fact, the Associated Press, of all places, has a picture of that very monument, and the caption from the Associated Press is, "Each cross marks a white farmer who has been killed in a farm murder." So it is substantiated, not just by that video and the physical evidence that everybody saw on display in the Oval Office, but also by another outlet in this room, the Associated Press. So you should take it up with them if you believe the claim is unsubstantiated, and that's a ridiculous line of questioning. John, go ahead.
We speak to Ian Cameron, the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, it's a critical discussion that we need to have.
Please give us your perspective on farm murders.
Sure. So, first of all, I must start by saying that I think farm attacks and farm murders are oversimplified very often. It very often happens, and I read opinions where people say it's purely one thing, let's say political, or they say it's purely another, let's say robbery or robbery aggravating. And you know, it's just simply not that simple. Farm attacks should be considered a very complex crime category. And there are many reasons for that. And I'm going to share that with you. Now, as context, I worked with farm attacks for close to a decade. I think, all in all, somehow had contact either on the scene with the victims, suspects, etc., with close to 300 specific incidents, my team and I at that stage. So I've seen a very broad range of farm attacks, the cruelty, how those scenes compare to urban scenes, and I'm going to share that with you as well. I think to start with, it's important to understand that South Africa has different kinds of demographic structures or you know, demographic layouts across the country, which is logical from in terms of cultural differences. But there's an important part that one must consider to start with, and that is the role that certain illegal foreigners might sometimes play. You know, if you look at attacks on the eastern side of the Free State, you would often see that they are people that come from Lesotho. If you look at parts of northern KZN, for example, they may be from Swaziland or Eswatini. You might I always use the example of Hartbeespoort Dam or Brits. You'll very often see Mozambicans and Zimbabweans. In parts of Mpumalanga, you might only see Mozambicans. And then sometimes you've got groups that are a blend of a whole different bunch of people, whether they are from Namibia and the Western Cape. Very, very often we see that suspects are from Namibia originally. And then you've got incidents, for use KZN and Gauteng as an example, in rural areas where the entire group is South African. So it's simply not as simple as saying that it's one group versus another, because it's more complex than that. Very often over the years as well, one must consider that farm attacks, very often the attackers themselves, might have links with other syndicated types of crime. Let's say stock theft, for example. Stock theft has developed to a point in South Africa where it's become a really big syndicated type of crime. It's not just to feed so-called hunger. Sometimes the perception is created that, sheep or cattle or whatever the type of stock might be is purely stolen because people go hungry. But it's not always the case. It is very often because of a syndicated, bigger type of operation that's operating in a specific area. But then there's a critical part with regards to the disproportionate force that is often seen in farm attacks. Now, people can say whatever they want. They can debate genocide or not genocide. We can get to that still. To me, the critical point is that disproportionate force and violence is often seen in farm attacks, where you would have an urban robbery that would last 5 to 15 minutes. I have personally visited a farm attack scene where an attack and the torture lasted up to 11 hours, where victims, and I always use the example, it was extremely disturbing, where his nail marks were stuck in the carpets from how they dragged him through the house, torturing him over and over and throughout an entire night to get access to whatever they thought he had. Now, there are many examples of that, but there's definitely a disproportionate force. Now, what I came across over the years that some victims had told me, some of them would understand whatever the language was that the suspects would be using, and very often the suspects would actually start quarreling amongst each other while they are doing the attack. So one would say, boil the water. We want more, we want to get cash or weapons or whatever it might be. The other would say, we're not here for that. We're not going to torture people. And they would quarrel and bicker amongst each other. And then very often it leads to that point. Other times, of course, it starts like that immediately. In parts of the Western Cape, as an example, we don't often see torture happening, although it has definitely happened. It's not necessarily the same way that we see in other provinces. And so the dynamics change. During my time working with it, less than 20% of incidents included torture. And still to this day, those that did include torture was something out of hell. A very famous story at that time, years ago, was the story of Nikki Simpson. Now, Nikki was attacked. She lived on a small holding just outside Fochville, in just outside Johannesburg, close to the northwest border. And Nikki lived on her own. She's not very well off. Never, well, in a long time wasn't, and still isn't. And they used an electric drill to drill through her knees and her feet. And they really, really hurt her. And when you would speak to Nikki afterwards, I visited her several times. Her neighbors were also attacked, the man having been murdered in the dairy on the farm. I mean, when you spoke with them, you could feel the immense trauma and the pain that they had experienced. So it is something, it's absolutely horrific. So no one can take away from the brutality that we very often see. Now, then we get to the next part, where a lot of people want to constantly compare farm attacks to other types of violent crime. And I understand why people do that, because people always want a variable for them to be able to say, yeah, but is it worse than this, or is it at that level or not? Now, my approach differs. I don't think you can just compare it to, for example, gang violence, because the entire dynamic is different. This past weekend, and I know we're still going to talk about that, 26 or 27 people were murdered in the Cape Flats, just in a space of 48 hours. That's a war zone rate. I'm not aware of any farm murders over this past weekend. Forgive me if I missed something, but I'm not aware of that. But it would be unfair from both the issues to try and compare them as though one life is worth more than another. But there's something very unique when it comes to a farm attack that must be remembered. That when a farmer or a farm worker or someone on that farm is killed, there's a very good chance, especially when it's amongst farm workers and farmers, that someone won't eat in that very week again. The ripple effect of it on not only your, I almost want to call it your family economy, and on that farm economy and then your rural economy is significant. Compared to if you or I get murdered today, which is horrific and it's sad and it's traumatizing to think about, chances are the world's just going to continue tomorrow. But it doesn't have necessarily a ripple effect on everyone else around us or in such a significant way, at least immediately. So those are just a few thoughts. In terms of the demographics of victims affected, it is certainly not just one demographic that's affected. The perception is often created that it's just one group that faces torture. I also do not agree with that. In the majority of cases, it must be highlighted that the cases that I had exposure to, and this is just purely my personal opinion, was that most of the victims that were tortured were white on those farms. But I have a significant problem that now we're forcing this thing because of what happened last week in the US. Now it's becoming a race debate. And I think we're missing the ball. I think it is of tremendous importance that we do not start rating the value of humans based on their skin color, and that we're not busy with a debate on classification instead of focusing on this specific matter becoming a priority crime and understanding what a major negative impact it has on rural communities. And I'm not talking about big agri, the massive companies and so on. I'm talking about, I love how SAI, the Southern African Agri Initiative, always speak about it. They speak about family farmers, what impact it has on a family farming community. That's where we should be focusing. The last two parts, Chris, about what makes a farm attack unique, apart from the disproportionate violence, is one, it's the only violent crime in South Africa that is politically encouraged, where certain people, and you know who I'm talking about, can continue to sing songs that encourage killing. They can sugarcoat it all they like. It is hate speech and it is incitement of violence. And whoever doesn't see that, including some of our courts, I'm extremely concerned about the compass used to determine that it is just purely freedom of speech. It cannot be that in a democratic country where we're aiming for a democratic, sustainable future, that is allowed. So that's the first part. The last one then is the fact that it's often encouraged or cheered on social media. Very often you would read on social media about a farm attack or a farm murder, and it would be something horrific. And then you read the comments and you see how people laugh about it, how people say, well done. And they encourage these horrific things. What saddens me sometimes is that often before, I never ever, and I have never mentioned race when telling or sharing information about a farm attack. The assumption is very often made that because I said it's a farm attack, that it's a white victim, and then it gets cheered on and they would specifically say, "Yeah, you white, this and that." As soon as I say, "But hang on, it wasn't a white person," then suddenly it goes quiet. There's this awkward silence, and it shouldn't be that way. It is absolutely tragic that anyone should be faced with this type of violence.
And my nation's people have got 12 tribes. We're supposed to have 12 tribes. We've only got 11 because all the names was excluding the Khoisan language. Now we've got 12 tribes because the Khoisan has not been acknowledged. And if you don't acknowledge something, there's something hidden. I want to get back to the farmers. You're hiding the farmers as well. You don't want to speak the truth. You don't want to make as if it exists. And you're this airy-fairy. No. Be a president for once. Get rid of all these people that are lying to you and telling you what to do. Look at your nation. If you don't have time to do it, get me to come. I'll take you in my little skedonk and I'll drive you through South Africa, wherever you want to go, and see the truth. And we put a wig on you and we go, and nobody will know who you are. But you need to see the people on the ground are struggling, are suffering, but you are following a communistic rule. That's why. You don't care. As long as you have a fat check, a fat bank account. When you said people don't take away the farmer's ground, I just want to go back. I think it's 2004. The mineral rights were taken away from every single citizen in this nation, including my family. If they didn't have any mining rights, if there wasn't a prospect or anything at that stage, they would lose their mining rights. So don't come and tell me a story that you're not going to take the farm's ground away. Julius Malema comes from your ANC. He was a youth leader. The Lord showed me it's like an octopus and there's feelers going out. every political party that came from the ANC is just bluffing the whole South Africa. You have all been indoctrinated with hate, and you are all indoctrinated to do a certain thing to destroy South Africa.
Well, thank you so much. I can tell you that we are coming to you from Seshego, where the community members here have been demarcating stands for themselves. And I can tell you that this land is one of the vacant land in Seshego, and it has not been used for quite some years. So the community members took it upon themselves to come here to invade this land, to build shacks, and also to demarcate stands for themselves. And I also want to tell you that some of the community members here are saying that they've been living, in Seshego, and some of them have been staying with their families and their parents, but now they want their own land so that they can, be able to build houses for themselves and also to build, businesses and other things in this land. And they're saying that the municipality has not been using this land, and they don't even know who is the owner of this land because nothing has been happening and there is no activity taking place in this land. They're saying that they are going to continue to, expropriate this land without compensation. They're saying that they're going to invade each and every land around Seshego, particularly where there are no, economic activities and where the land is not being used either by the municipality or the private owners. They are saying that this land is privately owned and the owner apparently, passed on long time ago, but it seems like now the land belongs to his, descendants. But they are saying that the descendants have not been doing anything with this land, and people are here are complaining that they don't have place to stay. So they're saying that they are going to continue, from here they're going to move to the other side of the Matlala Road to continue to expropriate this land. And they are saying that they understand the new law which was signed by the President Cyril Ramaphosa 2 weeks ago, the Land Expropriation Act, saying that it also empowers them to continue to expropriate this land, particularly because it's not being used. And they're saying that they are going to ensure that municipality is coming on board to ensure that they are going to provide services, and also they believe that the government is going to continue to build clinics, schools, and all those essential infrastructures. And they are also mentioning the fact that on the other side of the land, on the other side of this area is another land which is going to be expropriated. And I can tell you that the other thing that they mentioned is that municipality, yes, we also saw Polokwane local municipality issuing a statement that this is illegal, but the community is saying that they are adamant they are going to continue to invade this land, and no one is going to tell them anything, precisely because this land is not belonging to the municipality.
Nobody's building. Look at our towns and our cities. Water problem. Why? Eskom problem, electricity. Why? Don't tell me apartheid was bad. I lived in it. 1961 is my birthday. I'm just saying, who are we to be so stupid? It's like a movie that we're watching, a performance. But it's almost like our government leaders are watching the movie and we're inside the movie and they're enjoying the game. Donald Trump knows much more than you think, Ramaphosa. He's tired of you. Just like this nation is tired of the ANC, the EFF, the MK, and every hater. Even those that are in the unions that went with to represent South Africa. You don't represent South Africa. You're a communist group. You don't represent us. This is a Christian nation. I don't want to get you all up in arms. I just want to tell you we need to hear the truth. And the truth will set you free.
But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well, there are
and this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern you as the United States,
those are all recent. Those are all deaths.
Yeah, in many ways, I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, you know, the criminality that we are experiencing in our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk about that because there is support that we can get from you as the United States to help us deal with all these acts of criminality. And that is what I believe partnership is all about. And we are here as a partner so that we can help each other whenever there are challenges. So I'd like us to discuss it, and of course outside of the media, so that we sit down and have a really good discussion that will lead to good outcomes.
This issue of the land, this issue that Donald Trump fears so much, we offer this question of the land. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do with South African land, because he's never been here. And he must keep his America, we will keep our South Africa. That's what he must do. South Africa is our land. South Africa belongs to all the people who live here in South Africa. It does not belong to Donald Trump. He can keep his America. And Ene is even worse. He is even worse. When I meet him, I will tell him. I will say, you, Donald Trump, you are even worse because your forebears came to America. They found the native, the indigenous Americans. They wiped them out. They killed nearly all of them. We are living as a nation, and black and white, we are going to find solutions for our land question. So Donald Trump must leave us alone. He must leave us alone, Maori.
The White House meeting between President Ramaphosa and President Trump in full glare of the media served to highlight the appalling failures of South Africa's ruling elite. The moment when Mr. Trump played Julius Malema chanting "Kill the Boer" in a packed stadium was particularly devastating.
Kill the Boer! Farmer! Shoot to kill! Hamaza!
Every decent human being in the world watching this knows instinctively that "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is hate speech and criminal incitement to violence. SRF polls show that the vast majority of South Africans, including ANC and EFF voters, regard it as hateful and wrong. Everyone knows it is wrong, except President Ramaphosa, who has never publicly condemned the chant as hate speech, not even in the Oval Office when he had every opportunity and motive to do so. Everyone knows it's wrong, except the judges of the Constitutional Court, who just a few weeks ago ruled unanimously that "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is neither hate speech nor incitement to violence. They even dismissed the right of AfriForum to appeal the decision, saying it was inconceivable that another court could hold differently. This judgment casts a shadow on the integrity and legacy of the Constitutional Court and makes a mockery of their role as the guardians of human rights in South Africa. The judges should hang their heads in shame. President Trump was right to highlight the moral aberration of "Kill the Boer" chant and the horrific farm murders. But he is wrong that this is only a white genocide. It is a South African genocide. As the head of COSATU
Zingiswa Losi pointed out in the moment, offering as defense of President Ramaphosa, but only to make the case more damning.
There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation. If you go into the rural areas where black majority are, you would see women, elderly, being raped, being killed, being murdered, and these are black elderly women that would be found throat slits, raped multiple times and all of that. And the problem in South Africa, it is not necessarily about race, but it is about crime.
Every South African knows that she is right, that violent crime savages black and white alike. The numbers do not lie. In 2024, 26,232 people were murdered in South Africa. That means that just over 70 people were murdered every day. To put that into context, more people are murdered in a single year in South Africa, a country of 60 million, than in the combined populations of nearly 1 billion across the US, EU, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. The total death toll of those murdered in 30 years of ANC rule is 653,758. Think about that number. 650,000 people who have been murdered on the ANC's watch. The Talmud says, to destroy one life is to destroy a world. Every day, 70 worlds are destroyed. Every day, 70 South African lives are brutally cut short. 70 families condemned to a lifetime of unbearable grief and loss. It is very painful and disturbing to share these statistics. But the only path to a better future is by having the courage to be honest about the failings of the present, to have the courage to acknowledge that what is happening in South Africa is a genocide. It is not a white genocide, it is not a black genocide, it is a human genocide. Every South African knows this. Now, thanks to the spectacle in the White House, the world does too. Every South African also knows that President Ramaphosa and his government do not care. To them, white lives don't matter and black lives don't matter. South Africans have given up hope of the government protecting them. The middle class who can afford it have turned to private security. Here again, the numbers are astonishing. In 1994, there was one private security guard for every police officer. Today, there are nearly 5. South Africa now has over 2.7 million registered private security guards, with 586,042 actively employed and only 185,000 police officers. The poor who cannot afford private security have in desperation turned to vigilantism. In 2024 alone, there were 2,790 cases of vigilante mob justice being meted out. That is 7 every day. This represents a government failing at the most fundamental level. The first responsibility of any government, the most basic obligation, is to protect its own people. That is non-negotiable. That is the foundation of statehood. And to its eternal shame, this government has failed in that duty. President Ramaphosa has failed in his duty. He has failed to protect South Africans. That failure was laid bare on the world stage, exposed in all its shame, on full display, in front of a global audience. As I watched the White House spectacle unfold, as I watched President Ramaphosa literally squirm in his seat, visibly uncomfortable, humiliated as President Trump accused him of genocide in his own country, I couldn't help but think, I'm not a prophet, and I do not presume to know the will of God. And yet, the thought kept crossing my mind. This moment, this humiliation, felt biblical. It felt like divine retribution. It felt like justice for a different, earlier sin. Because Ramaphosa and the ANC stood on a different global stage and falsely accused the Jewish state, the state of Israel, of genocide. A lie a libel, a defamation of an entire nation. And now, in front of the whole world, they themselves are being accused of genocide. This time, a true genocide, demonstrated by the cold, brutal facts of a murder rate spiraling out of control, the blood of countless victims on their hands, and their total inability to protect South Africans of any race or background. It felt like what our sages call mida keneged mida, measure for measure, a precise justice, a reckoning. And as that thought took hold, another verse came to mind. I kept hearing the words of Genesis 12:3. Those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. President Ramaphosa and the ANC cursed Israel, and now it feels as though they are being cursed. You can feel it in the air, in the sense of decay and despair. You can feel the weight of a divine curse settling on this presidency. One final word to President Ramaphosa. The shame and embarrassment you experienced in the White House, in the full glare of the media, as you were accused of grievous sins against your own people, is a small taste of what is to come when your soul leaves this world. Like all human beings after death, you will appear in the full glare of the light of truth before your Creator, the Almighty Himself, the only true judge. In the heavenly court, you will stand accused of presiding over the human suffering of all those who were murdered on your watch. The King of all kings will ask you what you did to stop the carnage, the genocide.
It's no use that we have drones. It's no use having cameras if we don't even have criminals locked up. We need a better judiciary, not controlled by any political party. I want to close off with this, and I'm going to pray because my heart is very sore. I'm tired, like you, I'm sure. I'm tired of hearing the same story, that they try and wangle their way. Deals, manipulation. No, this bully must come to an end, and we need to call those that are doing these attacks on our farmers the right name. They are terrorists because they are terrorizing people, raping them, killing them, sawing them, bottles and hacks and whatever. This must come to an end. I stand up for the farmer. I'm white. I will stand up for them because I need food. I don't know about you, but if there's so many people in the rural areas being killed and nobody's standing up for them, then it's your turn to stand up. Don't crucify me if I stand up and say, I need food on my table. You need to look at your rural area and you need to stand up and you need to speak up and you need to say how many people are getting, they say the rape cases are less and this is less and that. No, people are not reporting it because the police is not doing their jobs. Where are they? We don't see them. We don't see them. I hope that this message comes to your heart. I hope it reaches America. I hope it reaches Donald Trump, because there are women in South Africa that care about our children. We care about our grandchildren. Please don't listen to the liars, because they came as scoffers. You know, in the Bible it says evil will be seen as good and good will be seen as evil. I pray, Donald Trump, that you do not make a mistake by not seeing the truth about what's happening in our nation. I believe you do, but don't let them come with the scandalous ways which they've done in South Africa, destroying our railways and saying, no, it's because of this. The television station, it's because of this. Taking off the Afrikaans stations, oh no, because we don't have this and that. And then the airways, we take the army, well, we don't have.
African broadcasting, if this Afrikaner resettlement issue is resolved, we're going to go into a room after this, you guys are going to talk. If it is resolved, what is the potential for the future-looking relationships between the United States?
It's got to be resolved. It should be resolved. It's a little bit bad when you see a stadium with 100,000 people in it, because that means it's more than just a little movement. It's a pretty big movement in South Africa. So it has to be resolved. it'll be the end of the country if
But
it's
is
not.
there potential for the relationship moving forward?
I hope so.
Are you
That's
going
why
to
I'm
take
here.
in November?
I mean, I'm not here for my health. I'm here to see what it is. No, I'd like to see. I have friends. I can tell you, Ernst and Retief Goosen, they feel so strongly they wanted to be here on behalf of South Africa, not on behalf of me. And, you know, they said, can we be here for this? Because they love the country. Ernie, do you guys want to say a couple of words? I hate to put you in this. This is tougher than sinking a 3-footer. They have, and they've sank many 3-footers.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks for the honor of being here. We've known each other a long time. We have spoken. You know, we're proud South Africans. I still have my South African passport. You know, we travel with this passport, you know, and I got my visa here. So, you know, but we want to see things get better in our home country. That's the bottom line. It's been 35 years since the transition. President Ramaphosa was right in the middle of the transition time in 1990 and before that. So it's been 35 years of ANC government. And I know there's a lot of anger, you know, through the transition. There was also a lot of stuff happening in the apartheid days. You know, we grew up in the apartheid era. But I don't think two wrongs makes a right. You know, President Mandela, when he came out of prison for all that time, didn't come out with hatred, you know, and really unified our nation through sport. You know, we won the Rugby World Cup in '95.
4 times.
We won the African Nations Cup, soccer. You know, we won some majors as golfers and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, this has been a long time coming. That's why we really wanted to meet you, meet the administration, and see our way forward, because we still want to see our country flourish. You know, we've got some great things going on. Business is getting involved with government. Farmers are getting involved in local municipalities, trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure that's been decaying for a long time. So there's a lot of coexistence going on and help from a lot of areas. But I feel we need the US to push this thing through. We've got a great ally if we can have the US. It's always been an ally of South Africa for a very long time. Even in the days of the war, you know, up in Angola, you know, you guys helped us. So very important for us to have your support and you know, get the change we need.
Where did you do that well? He might have done that even better than he plays golf, which is almost impossible. Retief, do you have, excuse me, do you have anything to say? I mean, I don't want to leave you out. You know, the guy won 3 or 4 majors. 3 or 4?
No, only 2.
That's a lot. By the way, 2's a lot. A lot of tournaments you won too. You have anything to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. President Ramaphosa. I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane. And there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer. And yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it, but it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer. And at the end of the day, you know, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers to produce the food.
Farming, right? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing, right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and you know, food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. You know, without those 2 things, you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water is great. Obviously, all the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down there. But yeah, it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the
So
water
does
out.
your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, you know, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
there's nowhere to live.
you know, both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult. But you know, the guys live a great life despite everything going on.
Something.
Written a letter to both myself and John Steenhuizen, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, and I can say that business does not dictate what happens. One in government does not dictate what happens in the ANC that I lead. We take our own decisions based on our considerations of everything that will advance the interests of our people. But of course, like any other citizen, they are entitled, as any citizen is entitled, to express their views, their wishes, and their fears. And all of us here as South Africans, we have views and fears and aspirations, so they too are entitled to do so. But in the end, I want it to be clear that the ANC will not be influenced by what business says. We are principally influenced by what our people say. And so we are not under pressure from business or whoever. If we are under any pressure, it is pressure that comes from our people, and our people as a whole, not only ANC members. And the pressure that comes from our people is about poverty, it's about inequality and unemployment. And those are the issues that influence our decisions. And so therefore we have to heed what our people are saying. As regards what is happening in the United States, we have noted and we have seen some of those demonstrations, and these are matters that are happening in the United States. And we will therefore not be opining on what happens in other countries, as we don't believe that it's correct for anybody to be opining on what happens in our own country, because we don't want to interfere in what is happening in other countries. They are a sovereign country.
We will have our education system will go back into a Christian way. There are many other schools that don't have Christian way. We will have one language, so we don't have this Baal Demakar story. It's like building Babylon here, where they got all different languages. We need one language so that the kids, the students, if they want to go overseas, they can speak English, because they need to have it. I was a teacher. And then the second language can be their mother language, but the English will help them to get to university and go further. What are you doing to our schools? I'm not even going to go down the road, because it's just endless. I can't believe what's happening. The entitlement of government staff members, I cannot believe it. And don't tell me you've got the equal story of the BEE in government. Look at your ANC, how many white people have got. Look at Julius Malema, how many white people. Then he's worried about Orania. Excuse me, if I look where I'm staying, I have the white people staying over there, one or two blacks staying in the beautiful, expensive houses. On top of the koppie, right on the hill, it's just rural. There's no white people staying there, maybe one or two. And you want to come and tell me that there's a problem with Orania? What about the rural areas? How many blacks? How many millions? You can ride with your car, millions after millions, and then you say there's no ground. They don't have any ground. I don't even have ground. I don't even have my own house. How do you like that? But the person that has less income than me has a piece of ground in the rural area, and he can flourish. He can have a TV up there and a satellite up there and toilet, and he can build whatever he wants to build. He starts with a shack, but he has his ground. Don't tell me a story about white and black, because this country is not built on that. I'm not colorblind like you guys. I love Jesus very much, and my job is to speak the truth. We need to speak the truth. Somebody needs to speak the truth. Unrighteousness may not prevail in South Africa. Guys, wake up, please. Wake up. I can't believe that we've allowed it to happen so long. Let alone, I've seen so many people open spaza shops and normal shops from Pakistanians that can't even speak English. They come into South Africa and they create a business. I can't even create a business because I'm not allowed to sleep in my business, but they can sleep in their business. They take over the small towns and it looks like a rubbish dump, but they don't care because they've got a plan behind it. I hope that you guys wake up. Really, it's time to get out of your slumber and your sleep. Contact me if you want to. hopeprayerandaction@gmail.com. Love to speak to you. I open the comments at the bottom. I'm not here to fight about black and white. Get me right from the beginning. I was brought up in a home that taught me the love of Jesus. And I've been in many places in my life. I'm speaking the truth because somebody has to speak the truth. And the truth hurts. But I hate it when I see this sly method of trying to prove why there is no murders on the farms. That's terrorism. That's terrorists that are taking our farmers out. If you take one farmer out, you have one less farm to have workers on. You have one less farm to have food on our table. How many farmers do you want to kill, Julius Malema? And I pray that something happens to you, that God deals with your heart, because my heart is not like yours. My heart is in love with the King of Kings, and he will not allow this to happen in our nation forever. If God's children stand up, and that's what God is waiting for, when God's children stand up, all these lunatics are going to leave this nation. Just like a pirate, he has to leave his ship. He will try and destroy one ship, but somewhere along the line, another ship will come and destroy the pirates, because that's what's happening with the Houthis. And we're not even going to go down with Hamas, because Hamas is like Hamman time, Hamman and Esther, and I understand it very clearly. You guys are wearing the scarf of the Hamas, so you've sold yourself out to the devil's children, and they really are. They murder, they kill, they rape, they do exactly what is happening to our farmers. So if I have to look at Hamas, I think that's what's happening on our farms. Don't tell me it's coming people from over the borders and stuff. No, Johan, Rupert, it's not just about the illegal people coming in. We should have government that looks after that. What's wrong with you guys? You're businessmen. Why don't you get together? What's wrong with you? And say, let's get our borders sorted out and go and hold our government accountable. And if they don't want to, they must get out. They must get out. We need a proper South Africa. I'm speaking to the people that are trying to rule our nation. And I'm saying to them, it's time. It's time that you start to look at your hearts. And it's time that you start to realize time is ticking. God has spoken. You're welcome to watch my other videos. I'm speaking from my heart tonight. And I want to just pray, as I said, Lord, I thank you that we can come to you. You heard my video tonight, Lord. You heard my heart. I'm an Esther. Esther spoke up against Hamman in the Bible. So that is my job. I have to speak up. I cannot be silent. Lord, this is a crucial time for us. We either make it or we break it. I pray, Father, that we will get the most amazing help from all sources. People will be interested in seeing this change. And I believe that you've called us. I didn't study politics for nothing, Lord. Use this nation to stand together and say no more. Use this nation to love again. Use this nation to say, if you're a hater, go to your corner and cry. But stay away from us. We want to build this nation because haters cannot build. They destroy. We don't need destroyers, Lord. We need builders. We need lovers. I thank you for what you're going to do, the strategies that you've given people already. Pray that we'll come together without agendas, but to serve you and make this nation work. Because other people, those that came with communistic, socialistic, Marxistic liberalistic ideas didn't have your Bible, your word, to build this nation on. Lord, God's children need to build this nation on the biblical principles and values, but we must not make it a church. This is to make it God's kingdom to rule and reign here on earth, Father. I pray for a great move of restoration in our nation, Lord. We will only see revival when restoration takes place. May we restore our hearts, Lord. And every word that I've spoken to each person, I pray that they will not take it in the way of offense, but take it in a way for correction, for direction, changing the stuff, getting excited and saying, but Esther has spoken, it's true. We need to do this, we need to do that. Bring the traffic officers back. We see so many accidents, so much ruthless videos, ruthless things that are happening inside. Why? Why would President Ramaphosa, Lord, say there's so much crime in our country? When he knows there's crime, why doesn't he get something done, Lord? We can do it. Together we can, Lord. I pray for men and women of God that will hear my call and say, let's do it. I don't know how, Lord, but let's do it. Put me in front of people that have got your heart, that have the influence, that want to stand together so that we can build a true reflection of a beautiful nation that loves once again. Your love, Lord. Your love conquers all. Pray you deal with my enemies. You deal with those that are in this country that have got enemies that are coming against them. I pray for the farmers tonight that they'll have a rest, a peaceful rest, Lord. I know what it's like not to rest at night. I ask you, Father, come with a solution for our nation. We need an answer. Esther is willing, Lord. Esther is willing, Lord. Thank you, Abba Father. Amen and amen. I love you all. Thank you for your time. If you have got the backbone and you're not a jellyfish, please send it on to somebody else. They might not like it, but they got to hear it. Take care. Take care. Take care. God is with us. He hasn't left us. But we have to speak up. Will you use your mouth to speak, please? The young ones need to see God's children rising up a new nation. Go to the schools and talk about Jesus to them. Our youth are being indoctrinated by communists. Please change the clockwork with me. God go with you. Bye-bye.